Good morning, familia. Angel here with Chris. Today I got something different, something new. Not just an interview. Let's call it a mentoring session with Chris. But in case you don't know who Chris it is, Chris, why you don't share who you are?
Sure. So just a cliff notes. I'm a serial entrepreneur. Started doing business actually when I was 13, but since then have succeeded and failed many, many times. But I found my way into communications. I love podcasting. I love filmmaking, so I make documentary films, podcasting. I have 8 different podcasts that I play around with, and I also run an event called Podfest Multimedia Expo, which is one of the largest events in the country for podcasters.
So let's talk more about podcasts. I've done podcasts in the past, and I feel comfortable setting it up, launching it. But there are so many podcasts right now. When you started, and when most of the big leagues guys started, there weren't that many. So I guess back then it was a great time to jump into the podcast. You still believe that right now launching a new podcast is still a great opportunity?
Yeah. It's still a lot of room. It's a niche. You have to know your niche. So 2 months ago, I launched a kid-friendly network.
Okay.
It's one of the largest networks in the world. That was 2 months ago. For kid and family. So I have a friend that just launched the On Location Sound podcast. That took off. That's 2 months ago. So the niches are still there. It's just people are not looking at the niches. They're looking at these broad categories thinking that there's no room, but there is so much room.
So when you talk about niche, let's backpedal a little bit. How you found a need before you launched the kids network, you found a need, or you were like searching and did some keyword search, or what?
Actually, for that one, I had a friend that was doing a kid and family show, kind of gave him some suggestions of things that I was looking at. He did his own show with his son, which was great. But I noticed that there was a huge momentum for his show. So I figured, comedy is one of the top things in podcasting. There's nothing really clean for kids. Why don't we call it kid-friendly joke of the day? And that keyword took off.
Okay.
So it wasn't really, it was knowing the marketplace and knowing that there was a need. And that one, we're at 30,000 downloads 2-3 months in now, and we're only going to keep growing. That's going to be huge.
Before we get to the technical as far as hosting analytics, what the typical question, people ask, cameras or audio recorders, whatever it is. If I'm going to start a new one, let's say on a field that, let's pick a competitive field like mine, marketing. What will be your advice for me to start searching and narrow down that niche? Should I just stick?
Well, you're in video marketing,
correct.
So we go from marketing to
video marketing. Okay.
From video, we have different areas within video. You have people that are marketing through docu-series video. Very film-like video. So you'll figure out you have 2 niches in, and then you got to play around and figure it out. Usually what I tell people is start the video marketing podcast, and then you'll notice what the niche is. Like as you do that show, the niche, the sub-niche might appear to you because people ask you stuff. And you'll say, wow, that's what I need to do. And that's the gold mine.
One of my first times launching a podcast, it was called Rapid Improvement Event. So I learned a Rapid Improvement Event is a version of Lean Six Sigma that the military used to improve productivity, efficiency. But I found myself repeating this, getting to a cycle that there is nothing else to talk about. Once I get to that point, you're repeating yourself so often. Once you get to that point, what's your advice?
So I have a podcast called the Conference Cash Flow Podcast about conferences.
Okay.
After you interview enough people, it's a lot of the similar stuff comes up.
Okay.
So then you got to figure out, okay, well, I go to conferences, so why don't I do a review about the conferences? And then you have to figure out other formats within that format. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Like if I were you, I would find people that utilize that methodology. You interview them, then you have your own, the way you've used it, so that's a solo. Then you have people that use the methodology and it didn't work for them. Maybe you diagnose what happened there. So there's all the different ways to package the content.
I'm glad we're having this conversation because now, as soon as you said that, and if I stick to the video marketing, then I can say I learned, I interview the person that is the top guy in this strategy. I apply it. I share my results. I can review a book, equipment. So I just have to find what differentiate me from what other video marketings.
Sometimes you might just call your show the Video Marketing Podcast, and there might not be one that's already named that. There probably is, but what I'm saying is sometimes it's that obvious.
Okay.
Everybody else called it too complicated, and you own the 3 keywords that people are looking for.
So when it comes to audio and video podcasts, I know people gravitate towards audio.
Audio for podcasts, yeah.
Audio. What is your take on recording video podcasts?
I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but video goes on YouTube. You're competing with a lot of very talented people on YouTube. So make sure that, like for instance, Joe Rogan has a video podcast that he puts audio.
Yes, sir.
90% of Joe Rogan's audience is audio, 10% is video.
And he still gets a lot of views.
He gets a lot because he's a celebrity. He's been doing it for 7 years. He has celebrity guests, and he has a 3-camera switcher in a private studio that he's built just for video.
Yeah.
So if you could say you could provide a lot of those things. Now you might not have to be a celebrity, but let's say, and they're all in studio too. Most podcasts are all virtual. Joe Rogan, they're in studio, so it's switching at a live thing. So if you have those, you should definitely do it. But I always advise if you don't, start with audio till you can build up to that.
So what is your take on recording a video, uploading the video to YouTube, extracting the audio to?
I have no problem with that as long as the audio is not audio that was specific to video and not audio. In other words, some people in a video will talk about visuals. You can't see that when you're listening to it. And Joe Rogan is very careful to talk about as an audio podcast because I've heard him stop guests from talking about visuals because he knows everybody's listening.
Correct.
So you have to understand he's making that for audio.
So you have
video is a bonus for him.
So you have to be conscious that anything you said and when you describe it, that the person is listening first, viewing second.
Correct. If you're hosting and you know that your audience is on audio, most podcasts, 99% are audio.
What would be your advice for somebody that is the plate is full already? They want to start a podcast, but they don't have, let's call it, extra free time, because recording and having a conversation, we can have plenty of conversation. I think at least for me, the time-consuming part on video is editing. On podcast, it would be, adding the bumper, the outro.
Yeah, and you could find an editor for pretty cheap to do an audio podcast.
So if I'm busy, just leave the excuse and.
Well, my advice to them is they've done studies on women that have 1 child and one that has 6. The one that has 6 children does more work than the one that has 1 child, but they figure a way to get it done. So sometimes just put a plate on your pile and figure it out. Seriously, they're like, because some women, they did a study like, we have 1 kid right now. It's a lot of work. Yeah. You have 2 kids, you double your workload, but you really don't. It's more work, but you figure it out.
Yes.
But there's people with 6 kids, and they're still getting it done. So what we found is the brain has a really magnificent way of figuring out how to get everything done.
So let's say that I do a research on iTunes, on Apple Podcasts. That's what they want to call them.
iTunes is right. Yeah, whatever. But iTunes is what people know.
Okay. So I do a research. I come across a name. I survey my Facebook audience, my email list, and I tell them, hey, what you think about these names? To prime them. How many episodes should I record before I launch it? I heard some people that said you want to have 3. Other people say you want to have 10 in the bank so you can kind of have a better chance to.
So for me, it's about the personality. If you know you're a perfectionist and that you're going to wait longer, I'd rather you put them out and then start getting more. However, it is nice to have 10 in the bank so you release 3 and then you're not rushed. But I would just, if you know yourself and you know you're a procrastinator, I would put them out and start and then put the pressure on you to get more.
So you say
some people procrastinate for like 6 months before they launch.
You say you like 10. Why that number?
Oh, it just gives. That's a personal for me. It could be for something. You release 3 at the same time because you're getting downloads.
Okay.
So what happens is if your listener shows up in the beginning and they listen to 1 show, that's great. But if you have 3 shows, they listen to 3 shows. That gets counted as 3 downloads. So it gives you more gravity in the rankings, if the rankings matter anymore. But anyways, it helps you. And it also helps them understand your voice. You want them to get addicted to your show. Like, oh, I like this. Let me subscribe. So that's the methodology. And then if it's a weekly show, if you have 7 in the bank, what we call, then at least for the next 2 months, you have weekly shows as you're producing more shows to keep up.
So let me ask you, Chris. In the past, I use a WordPress plugin called PowerPress and what is it, Blueberry? To hosting.
Yep.
Any alternative to that? Like I know I can upload them to Amazon S3, but I'm losing that.
The ones that are really popular is Podbean, Buzzsprout, Spreaker, Libsyn.
Libsyn.
Simplecast. There's a lot out there.
Libsyn. I didn't mean Blueberry. I said Libsyn.
Libsyn, yeah. They're all, and Blueberry is one of them too. So they're all hosts. They're what we call media hosts for audio.
What would be the advantage of using that versus my own hosting company?
The advantage is the numbers are considered industry-wide as the official downloads of your show. And when you're looking to get advertisers, they won't trust your own hosted for the most part. They're going to trust the third-party platform because they know it's...
you use Libsyn?
I personally, on a bunch of them, I use Libsyn, but I've used others too.
Okay.
They're all good.
So now...
The ones I mentioned are all pretty solid.
So now that I search the name of the show, I recorded 10 episodes, I set up and I start uploading, what's next?
Then you just, you go to iTunes, register your address, your RSS feed. Mm-hmm. iTunes says, okay, you've been approved into our store. And then you just hit live on the episode you want to go live. And then after that, it's about building your audience. It's all about marketing after that.
When it comes to promotion, what is your top three?
Well, right now we're finding if you have, I also do YouTube. So do YouTube channels. Instagram tends to be a really great way to promote. Okay. For audio, you want to do audiograms, these little audio clips that you put up usually on Twitter or Instagram.
When you say audiogram, you like a short video?
Yeah, it's a short. It looks like a video, but it's a short audio format. But it almost plays like a video. It has a little screenshot on it.
Got it.
Overcast is a player that allows you to do ads. That's one of the top ways to grow really fast. Overcast ads, and then because it helps you advertise for subscribers, and then you have just doing ads and honestly infiltrating audiences that want your content and getting to know them. All too often I see podcasters getting into groups and blasting out their episodes. That's a surefire way to label yourself as a douchebag to the whole group. And then I, the organizer, whoever's organizer, will delete your posts. And you'll be known as someone that they will not listen to your show. unless you're in like for kid friendly.
Yeah.
If I'm in a group where people are listening to kid friendly content, for instance, and they ask, hey, I'd love to have humor. I'd say, well, by the way, I do the kid friendly joke of the day. Highly recommend it. They asked for it. I answered. But I'm not going to just go say, hey, here's my episode. It's very rude.
Yes, okay. No, I agree 100% that people just sometimes join to thousands.
Well, I'm just saying that because that's a lot of people don't know that what they're doing is spamming that group.
So before we get to the problems of podcasting, let's just talk a little bit about equipment. I think a lot of people get stuck on equipment. That I need to buy the best microphone, that I need to buy the best audio recorder. What's the minimum equipment that...
The one we recommend is the ATR 2005 or the 2100. Those are two really great mics. They're USB enabled, plugs right into your computer. And that's it. Then I use Zoom to record, so I don't even use GarageBand, even though that's on my Mac.
You say you use Zoom?
Zoom, yeah. It's conference software, and I just record myself. It gives me the file, so I don't have to do any tech. Then I send it off to an editor, and then they put it all together for me. For your intro and outro, you go to Fiverr. Go hire someone for $5 or $10. British voice, female, male, whatever you want. Professional voice artists, they have some of the best in the world.
What is the average cost of an audio editor?
It depends. Some people charge $1 a minute. So some people go to the Philippines where they pay $5 to $10. But usually if you have a 30-minute show, for someone to put your intro, outro, and kind of just make sure that the show's good, $30 to $50
per episode. Okay. So
and that's a higher end. If you go on like Upwork and stuff, you could probably find people for $5 or $10. I like using local people I know.
Yes.
And I don't mind investing the money.
No, it's a great way because they become your ambassador. That their voice, they share, they listen.
Yeah, and they know. I know they're not going anywhere. I know they're going to deliver on time, and I just don't want to go through the trouble finding someone every single. But you can. I have friends that pay like nothing for their shows, and that's fine.
When you say that deliver on time, do you have a buffer of episodes?
For pretty much anything I do, there's a buffer of episodes, usually 30 days.
30 days. So if you do a daily show, that means that you are 30 days ahead.
Yeah, so it'd be 20 shows because it's 5 days a week. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so what is the problem with podcasting today?
What are the challenges?
In your opinion? or the ones that you face with podcasting?
Well, for me, it's really just pumping out the content and being patient.
So patience is...
Yeah, like I have 30,000 downloads, but I want 1 million. Okay. So it's patience. Like you gotta, I've only been doing the one concept for 3 months now. So it's like, so for me, just patience. Like I want it to happen overnight, but I know it doesn't happen over. It's still, a year is pretty fast for anything. So, so that patience, and what I see is a lot of people are impatient. They want everything overnight. I want it overnight, but I understand that's not realistic. So I'm willing to put in the work and effort. And that's usually what beats the fly-by-nights, because the people that come into podcasting to make a lot of money never last.
When you say, so that's your main, and I think that patience is a lot of us challenge.
With anything online.
Yes.
Patience is the one thing people don't have, it seems. And they want everything overnight. They don't realize some of the top internet marketers, I've known them for like 15 years. They've been around since the late 90s into the early 2000s. And they think like this just happened overnight. These guys have lists in the millions.
I wonder if we crossed paths in the past before.
Possibly. I've been around for a long time in this game. Podcasting is what I'm known for.
Yeah.
But that's only the last 5 years. I've been doing education.
Yeah, I watched
since the early 2000s.
TEDx.
Yeah. I mean, that was an early. I mean, talk about it because it was so early. That's when TEDx first released their licenses.
Yeah. So that's one of the main challenges. Your challenges, but besides impatience, what other main problems you see around podcasting?
Honestly, I see opportunities. That's just the way my mind is conditioned. I don't really focus on the problems, and that's probably why I keep steady. So today I'll go to my office and I'll be working on future projects. I'm working on 2 books. I added a 3rd. So I'm in the middle of, I see a lot of opportunity. Honestly, and the people that are scavengers, what I call crumb snatchers, they come in every industry and they look for the crumbs to snatch. They usually don't make, they might get a crumb, but they don't last. So.
When you mean crumbs, so give me an example, the crumb snatchers.
A crumb snatcher is a person that all of a sudden they're in podcasting, they want to help everybody get to number 1. Let's say it's a marketing firm. Okay. And you're going to pay them $5,000. They're going to help you get to, so they're trying to game the system. So the people always game what we call black hat. They're always around. And I stay away from them all day long.
I thought they disappeared because that was
podcasting. It's a newer platform, so they come around to the new stuff.
When SEO started,
right? You don't see much of it anymore.
Yeah, in 2003, 2004, you saw black hat SEO people.
There's people on Fiverr. You know this. That you can still buy likes and but downloads. It's all manufactured. You might know it, but they're still out there.
But it makes no sense to buy followers.
Anyone that's been in the industry knows that. But if you're new, you don't know that. Yeah. If you're new, everything's fresh to you.
Let's talk about do you have a, I'm going to assume yes, but I'm going to ask, do you have a podcasting plan? Just like a marketing plan? Do you have like, okay, this is my target audience, this is my avatar, this is...
So for kid-friendly, I know my audience. It's parents like myself that are millennial parents that have little kids, 3 to 5, 6, 7 years old, and they're looking to listen to something that's fun for them and their kids as they drive them to school. So for that niche, I'm very familiar, I believe, with the avatar. For Conference Cash Flow, that's a podcast for people like yourself, actually, marketers that want to do their own events. Okay. So that is sharing with you how to negotiate with hotels, how to put on events, how to save money, and how to make money. So that's a niche, and I have to add some shows on that, but that's a show that I do for fun. That's it. When Kid Friendly takes off, which it probably will, the plan is to grow other things out of it. If not, hopefully sell to Disney or Nickelodeon because they're going to want my foothold in the industry. And then that time will come about 3 to 5 years from now.
When you talked about a network, do you mean that you went and registered a business and all these podcasts are under this business, or is just a series of...
So a network could be many different things. So you could have a network where you build, like my friend with the Horse Radio Network. Mm-hmm. He has 18 shows about horses on his own network. And network is a loose term of these shows are all part of this one family. Or you could have people that are advertisers, and what they do is they say, look, we have one guy that's a marketing guy. He went and found people that are in the same psychographic, people that like Star Trek. So he found 40 shows that are all Star Trek podcasts. He got them together. He said, listen, I'm going to sell the downloads of all 40 shows, and then I'm going to distribute the money per download. So all of you will get a fair share. And he gets 20% off the top. But he created the Star Trek network. So there's different ways to create a network.
When you say they sell the downloads, they sell them to advertisers.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you have 40 shows, let's say one show has 100 downloads, another has 2,000, but you collectively it's 300,000 downloads. Advertisers will deal with someone that says I have access to 300,000 downloads. They're not going to deal with 100 to 200. Usually the minimum now is anywhere from 5 to 10,000 is when advertisers will start talking to you.
Earlier you mentioned the ATR 2100 because that connects to a USB.
That's Audio Technica. That's a microphone that is made by Audio Technica.
Yes.
With a USB enabler.
And it also has an XLR. However, if I don't have access to a computer and I don't want to use the USB, what is your go-to mobile podcasting recording setup?
Well, the one I've seen, I don't use mobile myself. I use other people's mobile. The H2 Zoom or the H4 Zoom. Usually the Zooms are what people use, and you can put XLRs in there.
So you don't use none of those?
No, I don't. I honestly, I have producers that produce most of my podcasts, so I don't. That's why I could do a lot.
Okay.
So I only use ATR 2100 in my office in the laptop. That's it.
I do have two ATRs and two.
I do want to set up a studio where I do personal interviews, but right now is not the right time for me at this moment.
After we finish this conversation, I'll tell you about what I'm working on. But last question: workflows. What workflow do you have? Like as far as I'm gonna record, I'm gonna save it to Dropbox, somebody's gonna grab it. What is it?
So my workflow is I set up the interview, we record. Usually it's yes.
You said through Zoom.
Through Zoom, I record through Zoom. It's a 30-minute, usually 40 minutes tops. So now I'm recording that interview through Zoom. Once it's done, I hit record. Once it's done, Zoom says, wait for your file. File pops up on my screen. I save it to a Dropbox folder, and that goes into what we call a raw episode. Then the editor takes that. The outro and intro is already in a separate folder, and then they listen to it, put the outro and intro, and then usually I have them uploaded to my hosting account, and then that's it.
Let me recap that. So if I record right now an episode, I save that video into a raw folder with the episode number.
Yeah, I call it on deck.
On deck.
Almost like being on deck. So it's ready to go out on the field.
You said Dropbox.
Dropbox.
So let's say that I have a shared folder with somebody.
That's exactly what you do. You share that with your editor.
You share with the editor, and then do you move the episodes that are done?
The editor then takes the episodes, puts them in the final.
Okay.
And then you know that, and they're all numbered.
Okay.
So you know, like, okay, episode 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Okay.
So then what's in the final, either I take it and upload it to, let's say, a Libsyn, or I have the editor put it up into my Libsyn account, make it go live.
Okay. So recording, saving to Dropbox, and you that end of your site is done. Then the editor comes and grabs the intro and outro from the folder, puts them together,
Correct.
Save it to the finish, and whether either he or you uploads it to Libsyn, and you're done.
Done.
Sounds simple.
Very simple.
Why people make it so complicated?
I don't know. Yeah, just use Zoom and Zoom does all the work for you.
I was gonna buy the H6.
People used to use Skype. Zoom is easier.
Zoom is easy. Oh, got it. You're talking about the video conference. I got a conference later on today via Zoom, but I personally don't use it for my calls. Do you like it because you can record locally and to the cloud, or? It's
just easy. That's why I like it. And I could have multiple people on the Zoom conference call if I wanted to, even though I don't. It's just very easy to use. And everybody seems to use it. It's a new standard. So I always go with what everybody uses. Because then if you ask someone, can you get on my Zoom call? If they're doing business, they've used Zoom.
Got it. Yeah.
If you say to them, I got a new app, it's called whatever, even if the app is better than Zoom, the fact that they don't know what it is confuses them.
Got it. I did find that
Squadcast actually has a good platform too.
I did find that even when I share a YouTube link for a live call for Hangouts,
people get confused.
Yes, people get confused.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Zoom, you just hit the link.
So earlier you mentioned you Kids Podcast Network, the books that you're working on, and Podfest. Can you where people can find you, what you have going on? So if you
just go to chriskrimitsos.com, if you can't spell my last name, just Google will respell it. But Chris is with the C, Krimitsos is with the K. And then go to podfestexpo.com if you'd like to attend Podfest. And then with the Kid Friendly Network, just look up Kid Friendly Podcasts. All of them should show up. But Joke of the Day is a great one. Animal Fun Facts, they're all actually really good. So I have a lot of creative projects. I think we're living in a day and age where you need to dabble. I have a friend that owns Dabble Labs. We believe that it's if you're not dabbling, artificial intelligence will replace most of the stuff you do already. So if you dabble, at least you have an opportunity to keep working somewhere. But I like the creative arts, so I'm very fortunate to work in that area.
Chris?
Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you.